Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Internal Compass podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Archambault, osteopath and kinesiologist. And today, for the 20th episode, let's talk about emotions. But before I go there, I just want to say that I'm kind of proud and very happy that we have already reached the 20th episode milestone. This is big for me. I guess I've started this podcast without any expectations, and here we are already 20 episodes in. So that means more than 40 weeks already that the podcast has been ongoing. So I'm pretty happy about it, where it's going. For me, it's mostly a way to review a lot of material and also transform it into a way that it's digestible for you. So let's talk about emotions. I have already done a full episode on emotions, but today let's approach things a little bit more differently. I just finished this neuroscience class, part of my master degree program in osteopathy, and I would like to share what I have learned, and I'll try to make it as comprehensible as possible because, yes, you can get very deep and very complicated when it comes to neuroscience. So today's goal is a little bit to explain to you where does emotions come from. I think it's important to understand how are they formed or how are they shaped according to the latest research on neuroscience. Of course, all of those things that I'm going to share with you today, all of those concepts, they're theories. That means that they're not necessarily the pure truth, meaning that's what we think emotions are, but we're not really sure 100%. And the second thing is, okay, that's great to know where they come from and why do we feel those emotions. But I also want to give you, of course, a couple of tools to better manage your emotions and also maybe learn from those emotions and kind of understand better what to do with them. So before we jump right to emotions, we need to take a couple of step backs and talk about interoception. Interoception is the capacity that you have to feel the feelings internally of your body. Okay, that might sound complicated, but let's put it into simple words. When you're hungry, what do you feel? Well, you feel hunger, right? You feel that sensation in your belly, in your stomach, this kind of growling. Congratulations, you have applied the ability to feel this interoception inside of your body, meaning you can feel the sensations of your body, and that has been interpreted in your brain, and therefore now you can feel, oh, okay, this is associated with hunger, because that's the case. Our brain itself, it cannot see and it cannot tell exactly what we're feeling. In other words, it has to rely on what the body sends up the nervous system. This goes through some tactile touch. It goes through a lot of our autonomic nervous system, meaning this part of our nervous system that we cannot really control. It's involuntary. One of the main nerve that we will hear a lot is the vagus nerve. It's the biggest and the largest cranial nerve. So it originates from the brain, and it kind of goes to most of our organs, and it's going to sense what are those organs feeling in a way. That information gets all the way up to our brain, and then our brain has to kind of make a prediction, kind of have to make guesses on, okay, I'm receiving this input, what does this mean? And that's what interoception is. Interoception is closely linked with what we call active inference. Active inference goes hand in hand with proprioception because active inference is this concept where our brain is going to create concepts depending on the references that we have. Okay, let's put this into a little bit more simple terms. Let's say for you, you have associated this hunger with the whenever your stomach is going to growl, when you're going to have some kind of a stomach movement, maybe you associate it also with the sound. All of those different components, your brain has associated those with, hey, I am hungry. Of course, this is only the conscious part that you can see. Maybe actually you cannot tell consciously that your body is going to feel, oh, maybe you need some more energy. I feel that there is some glucose level that are a little bit lower. I can feel that the reserve of the food that you have inside of your belly by this mechanotension, right? How much tension do you have inside of your stomach, inside of your small intestine? Those are all different cues that basically your brain is capting through interoception, right? Through all of those different ways that, okay, it's going to calculate the pressure, it's going to calculate the temperature, it's going to calculate perhaps the level of stress, right? The mechanoreceptor, the pH, it's going to calculate our blood level, our level of hormones. So see here, there are billions, zillions of different inputs that our brain is going to take. That's interoception. Then it's going to create a guess, right? Our brain doesn't know for sure that those different inputs equal a specific feeling. It's going to guess on, hey, I think if I add up all of those things together, well, this is going to make up hunger. Just like when we're cooking. When we're cooking and we want to make a Caesar salad, well, in the past, whenever we have done a Caesar salad, we have made them with, okay, we need lettuce, we need perhaps cream, we need salt, we need those different ingredients, we need breadcrumbs. This creates a Caesar salad. And the funniest part is when you go to somewhere else in the world and then you're going to make a Caesar salad, but they are making a Caesar salad different. Maybe they add something. Maybe for you, you're Italian and you make pizza and you have never put pineapple on your pizza. And then you go to Canada or America and then you notice that, hey, some places, some people put pineapple on the pizza. Oh, now your active inference, those references that you have made in your brain, they're being challenged. And that's normal because our brain will always take the new input and try to make guesses. And if the guess is wrong, meaning like, oh, I was about to make a Caesar salad, but right now I'm in another country and it looks like the Caesar salad is not the same that I'm used to, then my brain is going to re-update the definition of a Caesar salad, meaning, hey, in this country, this is also a Caesar salad. Then I'm going to make those associations. And that's how we learn. We learn by doing those different associations, and we learn by updating our predictions. That's how the brain works. So we have different inputs, interoception, then we have the conceptualization of those inputs. That might be a little bit complicated, but I'm sure you can understand that this is what we do for everything, right? If we're walking on the street, we know how to walk because we have walked hundreds of kilometers, if not hundreds of thousands of kilometers before. But if you walk and then out of a sudden you see a hole in the ground, then your brain will have to readjust so that, hey, I have to take a longer stride so that I don't fall in the hole. And that has to do with the input that we have from our eyes, but also from our balance. So see, our body is constantly predicting and leading us into actions, but also reaffirming those different predictions to say, hey, is this the correct output? Is this how I need to associate now what I feel with what I'm going to do? Okay, this is a little bit of background just to now ask the question, okay, but what about emotions? That's the whole topic of today, right? Well, emotions are created as a byproduct, right? So as a general and as a natural answer to interoception and active inference. What I mean by that is that emotions are not a reaction to the world. You might think that when someone is going to yell at you, then this is going to make you angry. We think that emotions are a reaction to the world around us. And that's not what science shows. Actually, very interestingly, science shows recently that emotions, again, is not a reaction. It's a conceptualization. It's a creation of the world. Emotion is how we understand the world around us. Because when we feel things through interoception, going to our brain, linking those things to different references, right? From our past experiences, from what we know, from the different like reference that we have. But then for us to remember, right? Emotions are very closely linked with memory. For us to remember those references, we are going to associate a different set of bio uh, of biochemicals that are called emotions. There's a difference between feelings and emotions. I might feel hunger. This is a feeling. It's coming from inside. It's my interoceptive. But when I will, for me, if I become hangry, right, as you might heard, so every time I am hungry, I become angry. Then this is a perception of my brain saying that whenever I am hungry, I will become irritable or I will become angry. So therefore, how we see the world around us is through our emotions. So when you are with someone that you think that they make you feel this way, actually it's not, you are reacting to whatever they're doing. So if someone again is yelling at you, well, you are going to interpret the situation through anger, because that's how your brain will interpret, oh, this person looks like he wants to hurt me. So in order for me to react appropriately, I need to create something. I need to create an emotion in order for me to respond. And that's the key thing, is that emotions are a pathway to actions. Emotions are created by our brain and by our nervous system so that we can do something about it. Imagine if you would feel nothing, if you would have no emotions, you would have no drive to do anything. If you get into a relationship and out of a sudden you break up, you will be very sad, right? Imagine if you were not sad. That would not lead you to grief, and that would not lead you to associate, hey, if I am with someone and that person, I couldn't trust them. They cheated on me, and then I might associate fear and sadness with that kind of relationship because I don't want to reproduce this relationship. I'm going to see this through the emotion. That's how we perceive the world. So that might not lead us to go again in that type of a relationship, but therefore maybe we're going to be motivated into pursuing another relationship that will bring us happiness, because then we will associate that experience with that emotion. We will create another emotion to see our new reality. Isn't that mental when you think about it? So what I want you to remember is that emotions are not a reaction. Emotions are a way that we see the world. Okay, that's all great. But then what are we going to do with that? If right now you are feeling some emotions in your day-to-day life that you don't very feel comfortable with, well, congratulations. First of all, you're human. And second of all, I got some tools for you, not so that we push them away, but we can better understand them. Because remember, if you can understand better your emotions, then you can better understand how you see the world. And guess what? This is out of your, this is And guess what? This is in your control, because how you perceive the world is up to you. So now you might think, hey, does that mean I have control over my emotions? Absolutely. If you do the work, you are able to change your perception of the world. Therefore, you are able to change your emotions. And the first step is always awareness. You need to be aware of what you're feeling. So maybe first step is write down every single emotions that you're going to feel in a weekly manner. A lot of people feel only a couple of them, but take really the time to write them down. Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad, angry? Do you feel fear, excitement, overwhelm? Right? There are plenty of tools out there. You can ask AI, or you can Google a list of different emotions and say, hey, this I feel, this I don't feel. So write them all down. And then I want you to associate those emotions, whether you perceive them as being good or as being bad. And I want you to associate those emotions with what comes right before, right? So if for you, you feel a lot overwhelmed in your day-to-day life, well, what makes you overwhelmed? Is it the fact that, hey, I have too many tasks for too little time? I constantly feel pressured. Do I feel afraid because every time I think about losing my partner, this makes me very afraid? Do I feel very excited because every time, again, I set emotion, some kind of for new projects I'm working on, that makes me feel very excited? Write those situations or those triggers that leads to those emotions. So of course, if you have labeled positive emotions, well, those triggers, those specific contexts that you have noted, how about you do more of them? Because yes, we want to feel great emotions, right? We want to feel those nice emotions. So you can just simply do more of it. But then what about the negative emotions? Because that's the one that are a little bit uncomfortable. So what can we do about those? Well, the first question to ask is, can I change the environment? Can I change the context that this specific emotion is going to be associated with? So in other words, if for you, you are feeling very fearful at the idea of not having enough money, remember, emotions are a way for you to create actions. So can you change that? Can you change the context that, let's say, every time you have a discussion with a friend that talks to you about money, you are going to feel fearful? Well, can you stop talking to this friend? I'm going to just open this so that you ask the question to yourself, because in some instance, you might be able to change that, maybe have less conversation with your friends. But again, you see here that the trap would be to try to avoid all of the situation that makes us feel a certain way. And that's not the idea. The idea is, are you putting yourself into some situation that you know that are going to trigger those bad emotions? Well, if yes, maybe you can avoid them. But the second thing is, okay, maybe you can't avoid them. Maybe you feel very frustrated at work, and guess what? You have to work. So it's not out of a sudden that you're not going to go to work anymore. Well, then what can you do about that? And that's exactly the second question. What is the action that this emotion is telling you to do? If you feel frustrated because you feel that what you're not being heard at work, for example, you have some different projects and your boss is never hearing you out. Can you do something about that? Can you try to um, share the idea with some colleagues so that you have a little bit more leverage? Can you try to perhaps modify how you're going to present the projects? Can you try to strengthen and deepen the relationship with your boss so that he's going to maybe take more time to listen to you? So see, there is always an opportunity when there's an emotion, because an emotion is how we perceive the world. That means that now you are associated, in that example, you would be associating your boss with frustration, which of course it becomes kind of a uh, a prophecy that kind of automate itself, meaning that every time you are going to think or interact with your boss, you're going to feel frustration. And then if you associate those two, it's just going to repeat itself. So being able to use the action that this specific emotion tells you to do, you can break this cycle and reassociate. That's the last thing. Can you reassociate the same situation, the same trigger with something else, with another emotion? I'm going to give you a personal example. Nowadays, I am happily married, and this is fantastic for me. Um, it has not always been this way. I used to see my relationships as something that was scary for me, because I tend to think that if I get too close with someone, I'm going to get hurt. So therefore, I have associated this fearful state with being with someone and being vulnerable with someone. But when I started to deepen my relationship with now my wife, I understood that, hey, this is a false reference. My active inference was not working for me, but I was kind of influenced by it. My reference and my emotions of being fearful, of being vulnerable, were associated with my relationship. And now I have been able to change that. Of course, I have done a lot of work. I have taken this emotion into action to build a relationship that right now I associate intimate relationship with the freedom of being able to be vulnerable and the support and the love. So see, emotions are always a gateway to new references. The question is, what are they? And what can you do? What is the action you can take? I want to leave you on one last strategy, one last maybe concept, and that is, that's all great what I've been talking about until now, but emotions, trying to deal with emotions with a cognitive process might not be always the best idea, or might not be always the best strategy to approach them. What I mean by that is, you can think a lot about your emotions, about those actions, but of course, if you don't do anything, or if you don't let yourself feel all of those emotions, I think you're outside of the track. And I'm talking also here for myself, because there is no way we can solve an emotional problem without feeling the emotion first, because it's like if you would try to build a house by cooking dinner. It would make absolutely no sense, right? If you have a financial problem, you're not going to try to solve it with a relationship problem, right? You know what I mean? So perhaps if you're getting lost now into like, okay, those opportunities, those actions, asking yourself those questions, perhaps this first step you can take is next time you feel an emotion that you have associated, of course, you have associated that negative emotion with something or someone or a past experience, just rest, close your eyes, and try to picture where is that emotion in your body. Emotions and the physical realm are both connected together. They are the same. Remember, emotions are created by your brain, by your nervous system, created by your body. So it has to be felt in the body. Where is that emotion? You can ask yourself a couple of other questions like, is there a color associated with that specific emotions? Where is it in your body? What type of feeling? Is it a compression? Is it pain? Is it like a knife? Try to describe it as much as possible. And once you have described it, that's the hard part. You're going to sit with it, meaning you're not going to try to do anything else. You're just going to allow the emotion to be there and notice that nothing bad is happening. You're not going to die. This is a normal process. And by just allowing the emotions to be there, guess what? First of all, it's going to lower its intensity. And second of all, you would be surprised how, if you put your attention on the emotion, the answers to those questions you previously asked about the opportunity and about the memories, references, and what actions can you take, they're going to come much more easily. So on that note, I wish you a good introspective time. Remember, write those all down, connect them to the right triggers, feel the emotion, and ask yourself, what action can you take to be able to change your state and change the reference? What emotion and what trigger you associate together? What can you do to associate a new positive emotion on that reference? Hope that all makes sense. Take some time to reflect about all this, and I wish you a good introspection session. See you in 2 weeks for another episode of the Internal Compass podcast.